Hello, this is Cardy White responding to Stefbot's vid about things he admires about Christianity and Steve Jobs. At first, when I was listening, because I have a literal turn of mind, I thought he meant to talk about what he admired about both of these topics. But as the vid went on, I was less sure he admired Steve Jobs. But I'll get into that towards the end of my talk. Now, this is the first time that I've directly responded to a speaker about what they've said. I admire Steve Molyneux, his facility to speak about what he believes so fluently, but that in a way inhibits me a little bit because I'm not so fluent, but I'll have a go anyway. Boldness is genius, as Goethe may have said, may or may not, so here goes. Okay, first I want to say I found his ideas about Christianity fascinating, but I was a bit unsure whether, when he was talking about Christianity, he included the Catholic Church, well, the Catholic religion, in this. I was raised in the Christian tradition, but brought up as a Catholic. Catholics believed then, I don't know if they still do, that it's a mortal sin to miss the Sunday Mass. And I was, I believe, indoctrinated with a fear of disobedience to the church and the prospect of eternal damnation if I died in a state of mortal sin. I was educated by nuns who wouldn't tolerate questioning, as this was seen by them as to be questioning our blessed Lord. Once when I was 11, I asked in class why or what if God knows everything, which is what we were taught to believe, knows who is going to commit sin, who is going to be a murderer, who is going to be good. Why did he even bother creating us? Because he could have just taken the people who are going to be good and put them with him in heaven, and people who are going to be bad he could have just got rid of in the first place. And I was virtually screeched at by a nun who said that I was daring to question our blessed Lord. I've never got over that. Anyway, right, so for quite a time I continued to think about things but didn't really speak up in class anymore. I worried about my father because I thought, well, he will be going to hell because he isn't a Christian. He didn't believe in any of that, you know. Where was I? All right. I thought he would be doomed to hell because we were taught that all of us who were born into original sin could only be redeemed by Christ dying on the cross for us. Anyway, my experience of religion, and Christian religion in particular, has been that there was little encouragement for us to reason anything, and we should simply accept the teachings of the church through faith. But when I grew up, got married, had children, I then came up against this contraception thing, which, you know, the Catholic Church is totally against. And because of my own reasoning, and also because I couldn't afford to bring any more children into the world than the two that I have and absolutely adored, I felt morally impelled to leave the church. But that was really hard for me, you know, because I'd been brought up to believe that I should have faith and I should accept the teaching. Now, I'm intrigued that Stefbot has the idea that Christians can think more deeply about morality than non-Christians, or that he finds it easier to discuss or argue with them. My favourite speakers on deep issues of life and death are people such as Jiddu Krishnamurti, who, although he's now dead and gone, I have found to be so inspiring. And his philosophy is that we should each of us think for ourselves and not be bound by the teachings of gurus and other educators. But then I think intelligent people might actually not subscribe to blind faith, but might think their own thoughts and act upon them. I think maybe Steph must have met more intelligent Christians than I have. I'm not saying that they're all unintelligent, they're not. Right, if some of the Christians of the past had known what we know now, they might have broken away from the church earlier. I do believe in morality, but again, what morality are we talking about? Mine or that of another person? He talks about, if he was brought up in the Muslim religion, he might be thinking differently, and I jolly well believe he would. I'm actually married to a Muslim, and his thoughts on things that are radically different to what I believe, but it's good to debate. Okay. I agree that the mind is generally searching for a reason to understand what makes anything work, but we are all, I believe, the products of our intelligence, of our nurturing, our abilities, and of our environment, as many of us simply don't want to or simply can't think for ourselves, and we are content to let others do the thinking. Now, re Steve Jobs. Although you say you're sad, Stefbot, you didn't actually sound sad. So I felt there was a bit of dissonance there in your speech about Steve Jobs. You seem to bring out all the negatives rather than the positives about him, citing his criminality, which I felt was rather a harsh word to use. I agree that, people seem to make allowances for what he did as opposed to people murdering, but I do think there's quite a difference, and any rational person would think there was quite a difference between defrauding the state, which is what he was doing, I suppose, by hacking into the telephones and getting stuff for free, but bringing up the abandoning of his child as if it was terrible. Yes, of course it's terrible to abandon a child, but we don't know his own life. And you mentioned that he was adopted. I mean, maybe he felt that he was abandoned, and maybe his role models have left him with an insecurity about being a parent. So, in a way, I don't feel that was so terrible either, personally. I mean, I feel for the child, but it just, to me, emphasises his frailty. You say you acknowledge his talent, but again, in bringing up stuff like, he might have owed some of it to using LSD, and then that being illegal and a crime, which is okay, but again, that just seems to me to emphasise the humanity of the man. He might have been a geek who was so obsessed with his company and his machines, and that he hadn't got the time to get into the social side of stuff. Anyway, perhaps I'm waffling again now. I probably am. You might be right about there being no successor to him in Apple, but my thoughts on the subject are that someone else will take the reins, and if not, other companies will rise. Such is life. In a way, in dying, he is now giving others the chance to shine. And why do people want to know if Apple will continue? Have they got their own agendas? Have they got shares in Apple? I want to know, did he get caught, by the way, for his crimes way back then? Did he have to pay back any of the £6,000? All interesting questions, not terribly important. Anyway, that's my take on Stefbot's vid, and thank you, Stefbot, for giving me the opportunity to talk. Bye for now. Bye.